Salutations, Homo sapiens, and good morning to the world. With my final exams rapidly approaching, and by rapidly I mean literally tomorrow as of this fine morning in May, there is only so much time remaining, enough for me to cover one last topic. This year commenced with Miss Vivian Pop, and so it is only fitting that it shall end with Miss Vivian Pop. My opinions on Hazbin Hotel are mostly positive. However, if it weren't already apparent, I cannot say the same about Helluva Boss. There are so many issues which plague that series, and yet, surprisingly, I've never taken the time to actually analyze them. I could discuss the many flaws of the Stolas and Blitz arc, which have completely taken over the series as of recent. However, the way I see it, those don't represent the core of the failures in the show's writing. No, there's one episode, one tragedy from earlier on in the season, which, for me, shines a spotlight on where the show exactly fails to be comedic, tell a captivating story, and most importantly, maintain my viewing pleasure. This is the biggest failure of Helluva Boss, and until the Season 3 episode takes over, the worst episode of Helluva Boss. On this day, in lieu with my final exams, we will be taking on the long-awaited episode, Unhappy Campers. This is a topic that's been a long time coming. I've teased this a number of times throughout my first year, and it seems my dearest plush has been waiting alongside me. At long last, we shall get into it. Unhappy Campers is the 5th episode of Season 2 of the series, releasing on July 8th, 2023. Jeez, almost 2 years removed? That's impressive. Funnily enough, I've been waiting exactly that long to cover this train wreck, so this is quite frankly long overdue. And guess what? Not only will I review this episode myself, I will also be looking at some reviews from other channels to see where exactly others disagree with my sentiments, as it seems there are some counter-arguments making the rounds. The second season of this show is plagued with many issues, some large, some small. I will not say that Season 1 isn't a flawed product either, because it certainly is, and I also do not plan to argue that all of Season 2 is horrific. Sure, this season gave us the attention bait episode of Sinsmas, which is the second worst, and the literal biggest disgrace to be manifested by a human being, who somehow warrants more merchandise than the recurring characters, from X's and Oo's, the third worst, but the season did give us some diamonds in the rough, like Oops, and this may be controversial, Western Energy. It's a guilty pleasure, I admit, though it does have this infamous line.
He can get hurt?
Yes. Anywho, the truth is that even when there are so many crappy moments, Unhappy Campers takes the cake. The interesting thing here is that this episode is not written by Vivian Pop, but instead Mr. Adam Naylan. Yeah, him. Boy oh boy, Adam Naylan. Look, I'm certainly not one to judge writing ability, but this sir just does not have it. At all. He has had involvement in 4 episodes thus far, and out of those 4, the only one I can say was good is Seeing Stars. This episode and X's are and Full Moon is just meh. Sir Naylan has a horrific sense of humor as well, which is a trait we'll get into many times through this review. For f***'s sake, if you're going to make your animators do this, why would you censor them in the end? What an absolute waste of time. I initially wanted to review this episode too, but a rewatch made me realize that compared to Unhappy, this is really nowhere near as bad. If anything, Sinsmas is worse, which I'm only not talking about because Stolitz gives me nothing to work with. Yes, I pronounced this as X's and O's, not O's, because that's how the f***ing title is spelled. Why would they use 2 O's if it wasn't meant to be oo and not O? Right. Unhappy Campers. Where do I even begin? I suppose a synopsis would help, kind of. So there are 2 main plots of this episode. Well, no, not really. There's one plot and then essentially a cutaway gag. The cutaway gag is the first thing we see though, so I'll explain that. Blitz, the protagonist, is on the search for his long-lost sister, Barbie Wire, for motives that are a bit unclear. He goes around hell trying to find her, gets a hint or two, and eventually finds her in the living world, involved with the episode's real plot. That That real plot being, Moxie and Millie are assigned an assassination mission where they need to identify and off the murderer of this sir.
And this is going to be the cleanest, most well-prepped, most surgical hit we've ever had.
The incident took place on a campground, and in order to blend in, they disguised themselves as fellow campers. Okay, I mean, that's not an awful idea, I guess, but wouldn't that be a bit too obvious? Why the f are they playing as the reverse sex? And why are they siblings? That's merely rhetorical. The answer to those questions will be explained momentarily. Anywho, Moxie wishes to take charge of the investigation despite the culprit being in plain view from the start. And needless to say, things sure do happen. Oh lord, they happen. The campers love Millard, but cannot stand Maxine. Very clever names for sure. With the manner in which he's speaking, I can't say I blame them, but this is a textbook example of the Moxie torture that I had complained about in my video discussing the character himself.
I hate this episode too, but there's no need to shove it in my face.
You literally suggested this review to me when I first received you in the mail.
Unhappy Campers was awful. Absolutely terrible.
That's an interesting position.
Well, what if I was just trying to make you feel better?
You clearly just stated that you are not a fan of this episode either, so that cannot be the case.
Okay, fine. You have me there.
Dear Homo sapiens, this is only the beginning. Trust me, we have a lot to dissect with this train wreck. This synopsis is already dragging, so we shall now truly break it down. The best way for me to structure this review is via points. I have identified 6 main issues with this episode, and each of them will be getting a brief section to shine, or I guess, to rust. We'll go in descending order, starting from the least egregious, and then getting into the most damaging sins that unhappy campers commit. That being said, point number 6 is that this episode just is not funny. This is the lowest bar on my list because humor is subjective, and I respect that, but man, Helluva Boss can have some decent comedy, and this episode is not it at all. Would you like me to give you a sampling of the shitty jokes that Sir Nayland includes here?
Oh, that's nice. Why don't you take that advice and shove it right between your legs?
Haha, get it? The nurse's mouth is sideways and looks like the female reproductive organ.
Your brother Miller, I like sports and f***ing bitches.
Haha, get it? They almost made sexual comments in a group of minors. Haha, get it? The song's captions are mocking poor old Moxie for trying to gain approval.
Oh, Jimmy Wimmy, can you please keep loading up these Wuggy Wuggies for me?
Sure, Barb. Whatever you say.
Haha, get it? Blitz's sister is flashing a teenage boy, and... okay, we need to pause here. When this episode first released, that particular scene made quite the rounds on the internet for the implications, particularly that this sir was, in fact, a minor. If that were the case, yeah, this would mean the episode directly implied grooming, which is not a good look. However, as far as I'm aware, the counselor was confirmed to be at least 18 years of age, so unless that insight is incorrect, this scene is technically allowed, albeit not very comedic at all. On that note, however, it's not like Barbie is the only character with this problem, as Millie straight up mentions receiving explicit photographs of the campers during her musical number. I suppose the viewers have just chosen to prioritize what activities do and don't matter in the series, haven't they? That was a tangent I really did not want to get into, but it was unfortunately necessary to address the elephant in the room. My point here is simple. This episode did not make me laugh, not once.
You're just cherry-picking examples.
Watch the episode yourself. You'll find out soon enough that every attempt at humor is about as dry as the ones I've showcased now. Or you may disagree and find me the pretentious asshole who can't ever seem to get a laugh in. Which... okay, decent argument, but even X's and O's could at least get one comedic punchline, so it's not like Sir Nayland is entirely void of humor. Helluva Boss is meant to be a comedy in nature, or at least it was intended to be before the owl said it's shipping time and shipped all over the place. So perhaps I am a bit more critical of the failure to produce a joke than I would be otherwise. Alas, it's still by far the least significant of the flaws in the episode, so I'll drop it here. Just as I should have dropped Calculus 2 in favor of Calculus B. For Pete's sake, when am I ever going to use trigonometric substitution in my future career? Are there any practical applications for this?
You enrolled in these classes on your own time, and yet you're complaining about needing to study for them.
Look, I took Calculus 1 last semester. You can't expect this gentleman to then downgrade his course sequence. Sir Jaypee needs to stay at the top of his game 100% of the time.
Yet here you are, criticizing my content.
Content that you also do not appreciate, Moxie.
Get back to your integration.
Clearly, I am not great at multitasking. One aspect of Vivian Pop that cannot be substituted with a tangent or secant function is her passion for musicals. Every episode of Helluva attempts to have an original track, and Unhappy Campers is no exception, unfortunately. Point number 5 is exactly this. The songs in this episode are lackluster at best. I've expressed that I'm no expert in music, but even I can identify a bad listen with my very own eardrums. This episode has 3 songs: Regular Joe, Everybody Look at Me, and You Got the Power. Regular Joe is just nothing, to be honest. This song feels so generic, and maybe it's partly because Millie's voice actress is having a difficult time emoting when she's doing a more masculine voice. Blame the premise, not the player. Also not helping is that this is the song with the line about Millie receiving images, and this song pretty much contradicts the entire conflict of the episode, which we will get to. Oh boy, we will get to. You Got the Power, meanwhile, is the least offensive of the songs, I guess. I can't say I feel any particular way about it. It just plays during the battle scene, accompanied by this horribly composed juxtaposition of Millie performing and the other imps duking it out. Seriously, this framing is Then there's the song I skipped. Do I really need to explain this one? It speaks, or should I say, shouts for itself. Sir Horvitz is intentionally making this one painful, so I can't knock it for doing exactly what was intended. But I even pointed this out on my first watch. What the did I just listen to? Jesus Christ, that sucks. Not every song in Helluva is good, but it's rare for an episode to have no good songs at all. Congratulations on Happy Campers, 0 for 3 on this one. Give yourselves a big fat round of applause. Bool, is song good is said equal to false. Ah, see? I can study and review at the same time.
Barely.
Shush! My point here is concise. Nothing in this episode is particularly pleasant to the ears. Not at all. It is quite unfortunate when the creator is apparently such a sucker for musicals, no? At least Mammon's episode would later rectify this. Damn, those two are hot. Point number 4 is defined by one word and only one word. It's a word that has admittedly died out of use nowadays, but I find it the most accurate description of this episode. Cringe. My point number 4 is simply cringe. Most of the scenes in this episode are borderline uncomfortable to sit through, and Moxie's horrific teenage act is the source of almost all of that. I love Moxie. Again, I did an entire video about that alone, but this has got to be his worst showing to date. Sir does not understand teenagers at all, and
The same accident that f***ed up your skin? You look like you spent 3 years in a tanning bed.
what the f? Us Latinos do not sound like that. But seriously, if the shark creature is the biggest disgrace to be drawn, Maxine has to be the second biggest. This is just my personal opinion, by the way, but this cosplay is also just not good at all. He had an actually decent looking cross-dress in Cherubs in season 1. I don't know what the hell happened this time. Not that Millard is any better though, because good lord is she also not very entertaining. Stop. Then there's this horrible ending. Yes, I get it. The joke is that the crowd thinks they're siblings when they're not, but this is just uncanny even to me as the viewer. To answer the questions of why Eminem are cosplaying in this specific manner, it's so they could make this joke work. And for fetish bait. When critics suggest that Helluva is only defined by sex and swearing, this is what they are referring to. This exactly. And the dildo wall from X's. Ugh. Why does the economy need to be in such shambles? In order to successfully execute nodal analysis, I need to solve systems of equations. And my TI-84 is not equipped to do that. I desperately need an N-Spire.
Just use Mathway or something.
Yes, I can do that now, but that isn't going to help me on the actual exam.
I'm not the one who willingly signed up for this.
What time is it? It's 4 p.m. already? Yikes! I need to speed this up. And yet I also need to finish the review. Those first 3 points are either completely subjective or relatively negligible to the viewing experience. However, the other 3 are an active hindrance, one that most people will agree on as soon as you mention Unhappy Campers by name. All 3 involve the plot, which is by far the biggest shortcoming of Sir Nayland as a writer. His plots are just really not good at all. We will start with point number 3, which is about the Sir himself, Moxie. Moxie is portrayed like he had never been before, and never has been since, to the point where I hesitate to even refer to this character as Moxie. Western Energy was not a great episode, but as the episode immediately preceding this, it was the best showing for Moxie in the second season. He appeared confident and tactful, while also keeping the softer nature he's known for. One episode later, and what the actual happened? Seriously. Moxie is self-serving, careless, and legitimately foolish. Moxie isn't supposed to be dumb, he's the smartest one of the group on most days. The target is identified by Millie as soon as they approach the scene. But no! They have to eliminate all suspects or some bullshit, and they just go along with it for nearly an entire week. I truly understand his motivations, and I try to cut him a lot of slack, because with the insanity he had gone through, I expect him to have certain emotional reactions, but not these. He's trying so hard to make good impressions and to execute a flawless plan on his own, but that try-hard nature tears him apart physically. Ah yes, because we definitely needed to see a montage of this poor sir getting wrecked by his environment day after day, while his wife gets daily eggplants on her phone. Torturing him is so comedic. The argument between him and Millie is also just straight up pathetic. We'll elaborate on this further in another point, but they have a confrontation. The episode literally has a cutaway to Blitz for a moment, and wham! Look, he immediately makes up for it. Aw, what a realistic fucking interpretation of a couple. Except it's not. It literally could not be any further off. This is not the Moxie we see in any other episode. Maybe he really did have his time of the month here.
My relationship with Millie is a lot more stable than they portray it here.
See, I'm glad we can agree on that part at least. I know that you are better than whatever the hell this imp is up to. I bet he can't even differentiate a parametric function. Well, neither can I, but I'm working on it. Let's see, so the tangent line needs to be horizontal, so the derivative must equal 0. Nullify the denominator, and t must equal...
Barbie wire.
No, Moxie, t cannot equal Barbie wire. T has to equal 1.
The character, you snob.
Oh, right. Thank you for reminding me. Point number 2 is indeed about Blitz's sister. This episode was advertised as the episode where she first appears, and this should naturally come across as a big deal, except that it's not. As I had mentioned during my overview, Barbie's entire plot is not even a plot, it's just a cutaway that we get every so often. I went through the episode in my software and tallied the amount of screen time this gets. The episode is exactly 21 minutes long. Take away a few seconds for the disclaimer and 40 or so seconds for the credits, and we have 20 minutes and 11 seconds worth of content. Of this time, I found that only 6 minutes and 31 seconds was actually dedicated to the Blitz plot, and of this time, only a whopping 1 minute and 49 seconds belongs to Barbie Wire. To show the mathematical implications, the episode without the disclaimer and the credits is 1,211 seconds long. The amount allocated to the plot is 391 seconds, and Barbie's screen time is a meager 109 seconds. So, 32.3% of the episode is on this plot, 27.8% of that time contains Barbie, and out of the episode as a whole, Barbie Wire is on screen only 9% of the time. 9%! The episode meant to introduce her, and she's around for only 9% of it. Purely and utterly pathetic. It's a shame, because in complete honesty, the scenes involving her are the highlight of the episode. The cold open is promising, coming off the ending of Western Energy, and I like the idea of Blitz searching for his long-lost sibling. It could have been a decently executed episode, but no, it's merely a footnote in this slog of nothingness. The moments that Blitz and Barbie appear are fleeting distractions from the tedious nightmare that Camp Ivana Cummore puts us through. Wait, Camp Ivana Cummore? Of course that's another sex joke! Now, my dearest Homo sapiens, you may wish to inquire what could be worse than this sin, completely disregarding the introduction of a new character to the series. While you are absolutely correct to wonder about this very concept, the only thing more insulting to me then botching up this new character would be to take a character that most see as a clean slate, one that had plenty of fans before, and give them an asinine arc where it appears they come out worse than they started. And to top it off, have this character straight up lie to their significant other, making up a nonsensical excuse for their conduct.
Isn't that Moxie?
Moxie was horrible in this episode, as I have already discussed. But, believe it or not, as cringe as he was, I think that the worst aspect of this episode is his wife. Point number 1, the grand conclusion to this pile of shit is handed to Millie's conduct. Let's talk about Millie. She's Moxie's wife, and despite technically being the third in line of the main cast, she is quite the critic magnet, mainly because many argue she hardly gets any character development. Millie didn't really do much in season 1 other than be an asset for the rest of the team and contribute to the development of Moxie. Sure, she had her scenes every now and then, and Harvest Moon Festival was almost about her, but that's really just a Moxie and Striker episode. So here comes season 2, and the first 4 episodes also don't do much for her. X's and Ooze was another feigned attempt, but that's, once again, a Moxie episode disguised as one with her development. All she did was crash the wedding and nothing else. Making the disgrace and X of both was such a mistake. So what does Unhappy Campers do with her? Well, first of all, she's not technically Millie, she's Millard. So right off the bat, I suppose her arc in this episode is invalidated. That's a bad thing, right? Well, no, it's a positive actually, and I'll explain why. Millie in this episode is adored by every single camper and even the staff for what I can only describe as plot convenience, and she's into it because according to her, it makes her feel important for once. Except this literally makes no sense. 1. This is a group of random teenagers. Why does their opinion affect you this much? 2. You're not even being yourself. This is just a caricature of who you actually are. 3. It's just straight up not true. You could make an argument in the meta sense that she's finally getting a lead role, but canonically it's just nonsense. Even if you were to argue that, this is not a Millie episode anyway. It's a fucking Moxie episode where they pretend she's important. This allows us to discuss the fight. To date, the only serious argument that Millie and Moxie have gotten into in the show. This would normally be a big deal and a heart-wrenching scene, with the leaves blowing and all, but this is anything except that. Moxie expresses frustration at her for the conflict that he himself caused by being needlessly dense, and Millie's retort is this.
It matters how I feel about myself. And for once, I feel like I'm important, like I'm somebody to be proud of. And I had hoped that my husband would be there to support me half as much as I supported him this week.
Look, madam, you're great and all, but what the was that? Seriously? Oh, you feel like someone to be proud of? Sure. It's not like in a majority of episodes before this one, you have significantly assisted the other cast members, while being yourself too. What are you, a mouthpiece for Vivian Pop herself? Are you just echoing her up victim-blaming mind so that the audience can stop saying you have no development? This is not development, this is regression. All of your confidence has suddenly vanished for one episode, then comes back as if nothing happened in the latter half of the season? For f***'s sake, pull yourself together, man! You know what you did! But of course, this fight does absolutely nothing to them, as I mentioned earlier. Talk about the most anticlimactic f***ing fight I've ever seen. If this episode made one of these two look like an airhead, it would be unpleasant, but watchable. This episode makes both of them seem that way. There is no imp in the right here. Most Homo sapiens will argue that this episode ruins Moxie, but no, it ruins Millie. Moxie had ample development before this, and was able to get by because we know this isn't his true demeanor. But Millie? She's lacked a spotlight, and this characterization of her almost entirely changed my opinion of her for good. The only positive to come out of this insanity is that Ghost Fuckers would go on to rectify this and give Millie an actually decent arc. It was the one bright spot in the episodes of 2024, which otherwise were all about the owl. I must thank Sir Rogers for writing this and basically retconning the Millie we see here. It was admittedly difficult to decide which character got it worse, and maybe from a tolerance level, Moxie had the biggest regression, but I just think that Millie's is more personally offensive. Of the 6 deadly sins of unhappy campers, Millard is the worst. Let us all beg the Lord to prevent Millard and Moxine from ever appearing in Helluva Boss ever again. Wow, that got fiery in the end, didn't it? This episode sure is skilled at pissing me off.
You're skilled at pissing me off, especially when you talk about my wife like that.
Moxie, you agree. She was just as bad as you are in this one.
Look, I'm not used to you being so harsh. All you normal normally do is simp for Emberlyn Pig.
Do not say this to the viewers. Now, this is where things get interesting. I despise this episode, and most of the community does as well, with it even having the lowest score on IMDb. However, this negativity is not universal, as with any controversial project. There are a number of high-profile reviewers who enjoy this episode for reasons I fail to grasp. So, why don't we attempt to grasp them? I have 4 relatively well-renowned Vivian channels lined up, and we'll take on each of their reviews to see if, maybe, just maybe, I'm not getting the full picture. Sarcastic Chorus's video was the first to release of this bunch, the day after the episode released, so he's first. I'd like to preface this by stating that I'm a fan of his, and his video regarding the frustrations with the fanbase was actually really well put together. He's right about every single point in that video, so maybe he can surprise me. Let's hear him out.
Just because something isn't what you expected doesn't mean it's inherently bad.
Touché. No, he's correct about this at least. Sure, the episode was initially pitched as being about Barbie wire, so it is inherently misleading, but I'll bite. The primary argument that Sir Chorus makes in his video is that, no, Moxie actually is in character. Moxie has shown to have serious insecurity and borderline pettiness in previous episodes, such as Harvest Moon, and his complete mental breakdown this time is a direct continuation of said trait. After all, he got instructed to lead the hit, so of course he'd react this way, right? Well, I'll be honest, this is a really decent claim, and one I would even agree with if not for 2 things. 1, this is the 5th or even 6th time that we've had an arc about Moxie battling himself on the inside. This is not a new story, just a twist on one we've dealt with multiple times in Season 1. Need I remind you of the list? Moxie is challenged by and overcomes his inferiority complex in Murder Family, Harvest Moon, Truth Seekers, Aussies to some extent, X's and Oo's, and Unhappy Campers. I've made a lot of points from this video already, so obviously you would need to view that in its entirety before this one. 2, even if these traits were justifiable by the canon of the show, what absolutely is not is the blow up at Millie. I did not like her one bit, but I can't say she was the reason for the mission being such a colossal failure. Sir Chorus makes a note of that too, but all I'm conveying is that no amount of homework can make this scene anything short of infuriating on both of their ends.
Seeing Millie take center stage is just so long overdue, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I don't get this at all. This episode is not Millie's lead role in the slightest. Making her a Mary Sue and the supposed character in the right does not make it a Millie episode. The fact of the matter is that the driving force of the conflict is Moxie, as, if he had actually listened to his wife from the beginning, we would have no episode. The entire sequence of events this episode is founded on are a result of Moxie, therefore it cannot be a Millie episode. Not to mention, her song is anyway, so not a good lead role even if it were one. Sorry, Sir Chorus, but it's difficult for me to agree that Moxie should put his wife's feelings above his own when all that's happened to him throughout the majority of the show thus far is getting consistently beaten up, both physically and emotionally. His final stance is that it's only okay, and that it has interesting ideas that were executed poorly. That is a stance that I can respect to some degree, but the only interesting idea is the drama between Blitz and his sister, which has not been revisited yet, and knowing the current trajectory of the show, it may never be revisited. As a whole though, I say his review is approved. Our second review was released the day after this one by One Force Positivity.
So the episode starts with a bait that you think is gonna be Stolas in this hospital room.
Hey, has anyone ever told this sir he sounds like Golf Ball from Battle for Dream Island?
You sound just like Golf Ball BFD. The f is Golf Ball? That's not what I sound like at all!
Oh hey, someone did. Anywho, the points between reviews will inevitably overlap, so I'll only discuss the new points, since you don't want to hear me explain why Millie isn't the cause of the rising action 4 times over.
The hit episodes, I think, are a great format. You could do that for like 5 seasons of a show, I don't know.
This is absolutely true, and I commend Sir Positivity for bringing this up. When IMP is simply doing their job, those episodes are hard to screw up. Case in point, the Helluva shorts, which were debatably the best piece of media the series had to offer last year as a collective effort. If only this episode did focus on the hit, though. Wait.
Because I do not want to see this show attempt to write a thrilling mystery. I don't think it's gonna work.
Hurt.
Another good point? Twice in a row? Yeah, I doubt Sir Nalen's ability to write an actual mystery. He had one funny piece of writing during his tenure on the show thus far, and that was a short about a weeb.
Where the f is the book? How did they get here? I didn't see no portal. I didn't see no portal.
This is a flaw I didn't even notice when watching. But yeah, where is the grimoire? Stolas got hurt in the episode before this one, and the actual transportation from Hell to the campsite is not shown on screen. So this is ambiguous and borderline a plot hole. Nice, the episode even has a plot hole. Thank you for telling me. Speaking of plot contrivances, Sir Positivity brings up how Moxie is singled out for looking weird, but not a single camper bats an eye at Millie other than a lustful one. He even points out that this contradicts both Truth Seekers and Seeing Stars, in which the imps are seen out in the open and are either recognized as imps or disregarded altogether. This review is helping me? It's pointed out 2 story concerns that I didn't find. You, my good sir, have earned a subscriber.
I wish Millie went harder because I really fucking liked seeing Millie actually like stand up to Moxie for once and not just enable his stupid degeneracy.
Oh, subscriber lost. I feel like I've ranted about the argument more than enough to show why I disagree, so I won't repeat myself. We happen to be in agreement that the musical component was lacking, the final song was the least bad, and the camp name was a dumb joke. And his alternate idea for Barbie Wire in this episode is actually great? I won't spoil it, his review and all of the others will be linked down below, but he provides a way for Barbie to get more screen time and integrate herself into the primary storyline. Color me impressed, Sir Positivity.
I think out of all the episodes of season 2 so far, this one's probably my favorite. Actually, no, not probably. It just is.
I am no longer impressed. Season 2 is rough, even within those first 5 episodes, but I will confidently argue that all 4 of the preceding episodes are better. X's and Ooze is also bad, Western Energy is a guilty pleasure, and the other 2 are just relatively decent. This is the odd one out, and funniest episode? That's subjective, all power to you, but there were no chuckles from me. Funnily enough, his video concludes with a shot at Sir Chorus, the review that I just took on before this. Overall, this was a really wonderful review, pointing out the flaws that I couldn't spot during my segments, and I'm honestly surprised his final opinion was so positive in contrast. An 8 out of 10? Really? I could never grant it that high. That's roughly approximate to a 10.5 out of 13.
You didn't give a rating yourself, to be fair.
Well, Moxie, that's because my ratings out of 13 are meticulously calculated from a wide range of factors. These alternative reviews will be supplementing my rating. I will give one to the episode at the end of this video though, I promise.
Please hurry up. It's about to be 6, and I'm tired of hearing you flame me so much.
Right, well, Sir Positivity, your review is also approved, even if I do disagree with your parting words. Our third stop was released on the same day as Sir Positivity's review. It comes from Arteus TB, or Madam TB, I guess. This one is much shorter than the previous 2, as well as the succeeding one, so this should be a less detailed breakdown. As a matter of fact, most of the points from this review are ones that I either addressed myself, or the preceding reviewers have also brought up, so only a select few remain.
This episode felt like a true appreciation of Millie, and kind of an apology for leaving her character out of the story for so long.
This episode sure as hell did more damage to Millie than it did assist her. Flaws? Where? Depth? Where? Where are they? Are my glasses failing me?
Because while Moxie got episode after episode diving into his own insecurities.
Yes, but not really. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. Sure, he objectively had more episodes than Millie had at this time, at a grand total of 0, since this doesn't count. The problem is that each of the 6 Moxie episodes before this are practically interchangeable. This was, once again, elaborated on during my Moxie video. Western Energy was the closest thing we've received to a genuine Moxie plot in the 2nd season, as troublesome as that may be. And besides, Millie did nothing but make a funny face and receive naughty images. The Millie fans aren't too satisfied, long story short, and wouldn't be for another year. It turns out that those are the only new arguments brought up in this review, but Madam TB has one more argument up her sleeve in her overall review of season 2. The ending scene with the crowd is, what does she call it?
Now I would argue that the finale's joke was dramatic irony.
So we're defending this ridiculous conclusion using a literary device. Alright. Factually, by the definition of dramatic irony, she is correct. I will concede, this is dramatic irony by definition. However, that does not automatically make it clever. Sir Nayland clearly took the shortcut here, and instead of shooting for some sort of nice way to tie it all up, he opted for the classic sex joke. And no, the fact that it's so uncomfortable does not make it humorous to any degree, in my opinion. It's dramatic irony, but such a cop-out variation of it with no thought put into it. By all means, not an episode worthy of the score 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10?!
ratio.
Unfortunately, this review has been denied. It's nothing personal, and from what I've seen, I agree with Madam TB when it comes to her other episode opinions, but this was just not it. You can't have it all, can you? With 3 praises down, let us find out if Vanity Moth can conclude this segment with honor. As much as this episode bothers me, the counterpoints have not been too shabby.
Just like in X's and Oo's.
Well, he says the title the same way I do. You already win bonus points.
If you cut out the 2 scenes he's in between the beginning and the end of the episode, almost nothing would be different.
I'm glad to see that it was not just me who thought that this barely qualifies as a B plot. I suppose my mathematical proof was useful after all. He makes an interesting point about the Blitz and Barbie confrontation, claiming it to be an effective and emotional scene. As I mentioned myself, this is the only saving grace for me, and I earnestly believe that an episode of just this could have gone somewhere pretty nicely. I will, however, respectfully decline the notion of it being emotional, only because it has so little focus. If it had more time to bloom, I'd sing the praises far more than I currently am, that's for sure.
As for Barbie, she gets the worst possible introduction I think we have seen in the show.
Is it odd that the positive reviews make the same complaints that I made during my extremely negative review? I'm getting the impression that even those who enjoy this episode see eye to eye with the things that bother me so much. We really aren't so different after all. He refers to Barbie as an accessory to Blitz that's just used to further his arc and not to have her own, which I also agree with. This would have been so easy to resolve though, by just giving her more than 9% of the episode. He provides a similar idea to Sir Positivity in giving her a larger role, which again, I won't spoil.
The fanbase can't praise Luna for being vulnerable in Queen Bee because she's in an uncomfortable position, and then hate the way Moxie acts when he's put in a desperate position.
I think the primary difference here is that Luna sucks. Like, she's just a bad character ground up. I could probably make a video akin to the Moxie one just about why I dislike Luna, but I don't even think this wolf deserves my energy. Of course, that's just my personal gentleman opinion though.
Because Millie's admittance of feeling unimportant feels like it came out of nowhere. So this insecurity of hers feels like it was only written into the scene to make Moxie more of a bad guy in this argument.
Ding! Correct answer! Bool, is Moth correct is equal to true. It's just as he claims. This excuse was pulled out of Millie's ass to make Moxie look worse. He even makes a similar point to me that this was used as a direct message from the staff to the audience. And considering how proportionate Millie is, it's completely realistic for her to pull this out of her.
Stop.
Where were we?
But that's not going to stop me from declaring that this episode has the best humor in all of season 2.
I think this is where we are going to start disagreeing. Our subjective tastes are on the polar opposite ends. I'm on the pi over 2 end and he's on the 3 pi over 2 end. It's an agree to disagree situation. He also has a detailed breakdown of the Barbie wire seduction scene, which, since I didn't harp on it in my criticism, I don't have much to add to.
For such an esteemed episode like Truth Seekers to have the grand development that the entire episode led up to be ignored is just inexcusable.
This is something I also didn't say much about when it comes to Truth Seekers specifically, but it's yet another wonderful point. Whatever did happen to that scene, or really the entire episode, it does feel like season 2 decided to retcon the entire incident, with the dorks themselves being the only remnant of it ever happening. Sad stuff, considering that was, in fact, a great episode. We'll never get the season 1 energy again, will we? Another point of his that resonates with me is how weak Moxie is here compared to his battle IQ the very previous episode. Stolas may have gotten hurt, but Moxie did not. Meanwhile, all of the stuff that just happens to him in this episode to contradict it. Wow, this is impressive now. Even though he loves the episode, which I entirely disagree with, I once again concede and even agree with a lot of what Sir Moth says. The only fundamental flaw is that he calls this episode what the show was meant to be, which is just no. Otherwise, for the 3rd time, this review is approved. To be clear, only Sir Positivity and Madam TB provided a rating, while the other 2 did not. For being so harsh on this episode myself, I'm pleasantly surprised by how well argued most of these positive reviews were. I found myself agreeing with many points and conceding to many others, with there being very few areas where I have complete disagreement. My rating of this episode will mostly reflect the review I myself have provided, but I will be taking the commentary from all 4 of these creators in mind as well. A major thank you to all 4, and their reviews will be linked in the description. No QR codes today, since spawning 4 random collections of squares doesn't seem very visually appealing. With all of that handled, it is, at long last, time for me to give a rating to this episode. Unhappy campers will earn a... well, First, I must do my calculations.
Here we go, the calculations. Do the viewers know that you do this for everything you rate?
No, they did not know that, but now they do. However, this time around there are a lot more factors for me to consider, more than ever before. Needless to say, this is going to be tough. So we're integrating from 0 to 13. Why don't the terms cancel? Why don't the terms cancel? Miller's Cartesian coordinates roughly approximate to... Why am I hungry now? Please, just give me a percentage. Why, Barbie, why? Finally, at long last, my calculations are complete. And I managed to use everything I've learned over the course of the semester.
It only took you a bowl of ramen to figure it out, huh?
Well, I was hungry, Moxie, and besides, it tastes good. Now let's see here. My final answer is 23.0769 when, once you convert it to a percentage, gives us a score of 3 out of 13. My score for unhappy campers is a 3 out of 13. To say this was a long journey would be an understatement. A long and rough journey, but here we all are, having survived not only the episode, not only other reviews of the episode, but also an entire 2 semesters of college. It's almost poetic in a sense that my year begins and ends with the same creator, as if it all comes full circle. In another video, I would perhaps offer some closing clarifications here, but I believe my perspective on this matter has been defined clearly. It's an awful episode, changed my perception on the show, and is something I cannot get any pleasure from. That's really all I can say. This is my longest argument by a wide margin, and to say it was fulfilling would also be an understatement. I would like to offer my most sincere thanks to every single Homo sapien who has watched up to this point, and especially to those who have been around since the early days. As we wrap up this first year, I assure you that it will only get better from here. More difficult too, perhaps, but we'll get through it as a collective. For the final time as a freshman, I wish for you all to enjoy yourselves. That's a wrap, finally, and it's only 8 p.m. I spent all day doing this and studying, and somehow it's still just barely sunset because of daylight savings. At least my rating calculations have almost perfectly prepared me for the exams. It wouldn't be a true day for Sir Jaypee without an interruption from... Sir Kakko once again. I thought he would have halted this madness by now. What in the world is it this time?
Firstly, rude. Secondly, I just wanted to congratulate you for completing this first year. I'm proud of you, and I'm glad to see you've come this far.
This is coming from the same individual who berated me 1 month prior for... well, that part doesn't matter, does it?
So, you still hold grudges, huh? I was just confused about your recent changes in behavior, as if you're hiding stuff from me.
Deja vu much? We keep having the same discussion every single time you call this number. Look, the facts are that I have changed, and no amount of prying will revive... bring back the sir who you may have recognized previously.
Stop the stuttering. I'm glad to see you're changing, but you're changing so much to the point where you're forgetting things. Almost to the point where you're plugging me out.
What if I was? What if I'm intentionally trying to preserve your mental state because the reality is too dark for you to know about?
Ooh, he said it!
Quiet!
I see. So, the cat's out of the bag, huh? You really are trying to move on me, aren't you? After all that I've done for you, after allowing you to live in my home, after giving you the basement, after letting you take control of my house, after I was sent to Camp Corner, after these 6 years of us being friends. That's it, huh? You're letting it go like it was a facade. I see. Well, you too. By the way, the fact of the matter is, you said it yourself. It never mattered how good or bad the news was. What mattered was that nothing was left unknown.
I did not say that, Sir Kakko. And truthfully, there are some elements that, let's just say, are better left unknown. You may never know what that is, and trust me, it's for the best.
So that's the way it goes down, huh? You're just gonna go back on your word and keep things from me from now on? I thought you were better than that. The real Jayden I remembered would never do this to me.
The individual whom you speak of is... well, don't even concern yourself over it. It doesn't even matter anymore, and probably never will. My sincerest valedictions. When will he ever accept it?
This is your fault. You don't want to tell him what happened.
I can't tell him! I can't tell anyone! I've been through this with you already once before!
And when you did, you threw me.
Yes, I'm sorry. Truthfully, I'm sorry for that, okay?
I get it. You mean well, you always have. But you can't do this forever. It'll come out someday. Whenever that day is, you better be prepared to take on that burden like a man. I can't help you too much, but you should at least heed my warning.
Well, heed your warning I shall, my good sir. I apologize for anything I've ever said that offended you. But for now, I must prepare the schedule for my second year.